sat down for an episode of Giant TV. He's been successful with many businesses as a founder, running them. He's got so much to tell you about his experience, how he's helping others right now. And we just chopped it up on an episode of Giant TV, and just incredible. And I know you'll get some value out of it. Make sure you get connected with Larry. Great guy to know, and got a new book out, which is amazing. I've jumped into it, started reading it, a lot going on there. So let's go jump into Giant TV, connect with this guy. You're going to love this. Hi, everybody. This is Paul Hitchcock, founder and president of Giant Jacks Media, where we are helping others to grow and nurture their businesses. And very fired up for my guest here today, Larry Mandelberg, who is a change mentor, speaker, author, entrepreneur, doing a ton. Larry, welcome.
Glad to be here, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate. You and I have chatted a bit offline about what you're doing, and just very interesting stuff. And so I want to get into it for benefit of our listeners. First of all, a little bit about your background in business, if you will.
Fifth generation family-owned business. I represent the fifth generation. We started in the 1850s, and believe it or not, in hides and furs. And it evolved over the years into essentially an auto parts store and machine shop. That business no longer exists. The corporation still exists, but I don't do that anymore. And over the last 60 years, I've owned or started and owned at least 13 different businesses that I can remember. I can't remember them all, but I'm a non-recovering serial entrepreneur. What can I say? It's an illness.
Where does that come from? Is that, you think that's in your blood? Is it obviously your family had the business going? Did you get it from your dad, or what is it?
No, I think it's environmental. I think there's a certain number of natural strengths that lead people there. But, people say, are there born leaders, or are leaders made? And the answer is yes, right? So entrepreneurship for me, I believe, came from being exposed to an environment where we were in charge. Yeah. We were the boss. Yep. We made the decisions. We chose what to do. And that has always appealed to me. So when it came time for me to make a choice as to whether I want to stay in the family business or not, the choice was really not about, am I going to go find a job? It was, what business am I going to go start? Right? Yep. It was a natural thing. So that's what I've done my whole life, is either buy businesses or start businesses or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I was just thinking there's a funny comedian, Sebastian Maniscalco, and he was, Italian guy raised. His father would look at him and he was just a kid and said, "What are you doing? What are you, go start a damn business, would you?"
Yeah.
So that's you. Well, awesome. So change mentor. What, I introduced you that way. What exactly are you doing, and what does that mean?
It's a great question. There's a reality. If you have an organization and you want it to be sustainable, you want it to survive beyond your leadership team, you have to grow. An organization that isn't growing is dying. People will argue that point. I'm happy to debate it with anybody, but most people generally accept the fact that if you have an organization and it's not growing, it's dying.
Yeah.
So growth creates change. You can't manage 20 customers the way you manage 200. You can't manage 20 employees the way you manage 200. Change is something people tend to be afraid of. I always ask, how many of you in the audience tend to believe people like change? And nobody raises their hand. And the reality is that everybody loves the change they do unto others. Nobody loves the change others do unto them. Oh, so when you have an organization that's very successful, it's growing in some way, geographically, revenue, customers, products, services, there's some form of growth, and that growth creates change. And usually it's change the leadership team isn't familiar with. So they have to make guesses, and they tend to make bad decisions. They tend to do things that are harmful without knowing it, right?
Yeah.
So what I do is I come into organizations that are struggling with growth and
Mm.
struggling with change, successful organizations, and help them transition from where they've been to where they need to be to maintain their success and their sustainability.
So fascinating. So how broad of a look do you get involved with? Is it change employee communication? Is it, management? I mean, what are all the areas that you're diving
Yeah,
into?
it's a great question. So it's interesting you asked about my background because when I was growing up, people used to say if you start a new business and it lasts 3 years, you'll be fine. And I thought that was ridiculous. It's to me, it's just a stupid thing to say. Time has nothing to do with it. So I literally spent 23 years doing primary research into why organizations fail. And what I found is that they exist in one of three states of organizational maturity. And organizations in youth always fail for the same reason, a lack of clarity of purpose.
Uh,
Organizations in adolescence always fail for the same reason, lack of consistency of performance. Think if I can't make commitments to my customers, my employees, my vendors, and honor them, if I can't operate purposefully and predictably and consistently, they aren't going to be trustworthy, right?
yeah,
They're not going
yeah,
to stick around.
yeah.
And then the third is in adulthood, it's a lack of engagement of people. So when you say, how far do I go in and I measure 8 critical factors that determine the level of maturity of the organization. And then we focus on those weakest factors. So most of my clients are trying to mature into adulthood, but they haven't gained clarity of purpose. And when I say that, people always argue with me. Of course, we know what we're doing. We know why we're here. We know what we sell. We know what our customers want. I say, okay, well, let's pick any 5 of your employees and ask them what your business is.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
let's see if we get 2 answers that match, because we won't. We'll get 5. That means you don't have clarity. You don't have clarity of purpose.
Is
So
this what, Claire, when you say purpose, do you mean that like a value proposition statement or purpose of what we do, what we execute on?
great question. There are 3 components to purpose. The first is the value you deliver to the outside market. The second is what your long-term goals are for the organization, what you're
Mhm.
trying to achieve. There has to be a goal that's bigger than any one individual. So one of the goals of one of the companies I'm involved with is to change the way education works. That's a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
Some people call it a vision. And then the third is the culture. You have to define the culture and the boundaries around which you will determine acceptable and unacceptable behavior.
Hmm.
And the reason for that, the reason that's so important is because it starts to create an environment where you don't have to use as many rules. You don't have to have as strong a rules-based environment. You can have what Dov Seidman, who wrote a book called How, he calls it the should culture, meaning people don't need rules because they all have the same values and they all know what's right and what they should do, and they do what they should do. They don't
Yeah.
need a rule to tell them what they can do.
Yeah.
So that's what clarity of purpose is. The value we deliver, what we're trying to achieve long term that's bigger than any one of us, and the environment that we want to create where we're going to work.
Yeah. Very clear. Very clear. So what's coming across is you've done this before. I mean, your answers
Few
are great.
times,
Yeah, a few
few
times.
times.
Well, okay. So when you're going into a company, then I'm curious, are you meeting with as you do the intake to figure things out, is this with the management team, the owners, the employees, all of those people? What is that? Are you on site doing stuff, virtual?
I am wherever the prospect needs me to be.
Hmm. Hmm.
I can do it remotely. I can do it on site. It really isn't important. Your many of my clients, I have multiple locations. It's not just a single location.
Oh yeah.
So it all starts with an assessment tool that I call the Business Manager's Reality Index. It's the BMRI, like a business MRI. And it's about a 10-minute survey. And you actually, if you buy the book, you get access to it. There's an address, a URL in the back in the
Yeah.
last chapter. And I am only typically working with the top three tiers of management. Now, oftentimes, because there's a lot of structural change that needs to take place, it's not uncommon for me to have to take the organization through a re-engineering process, a structural re-engineering process, changing the way departments are set up and how they integrate. So it almost always requires either someone at a board level or a president, CEO, somebody at the tip of that power structure. But there has to be the top three tiers of leadership involved because they have to be the change agents.
Yeah.
So not only do I work with them, but they have to be sponsors. They have to understand the value of the change and be able to communicate it throughout the organization effectively.
Hmm.
So it's always with that top group. Now, there are times when I have had the need to help present the case for change on very large projects. I re-engineered the IT branch of CalPERS, which is
Oh yeah.
a
Yep.
multi-billion-dollar
Huge.
state agency that handles healthcare and pensions for
Yep.
all state employees. Yeah, it was a $1 billion project. I had a $350 million budget,
Damn.
and that was for what they called enterprise transition management. And then the other piece of it was all the technology, and that was a $650 million piece of the project. So I often had to speak to large groups of people to help them understand the changes that were coming because it was just too much for any one manager. They didn't have enough scope, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's not common. It's not, I don't usually get involved with frontline people. I'd much rather have managers learn how to be better managers
Yep.
and have that come from the management team.
Yeah, because I'm thinking when you mentioned your example there, I mean, that's a huge example, but change, you start presenting people with change, they got to do something differently. There's resistance there. So, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you've got to be like a good listener, a people person. You can't cram stuff in people's faces either. I mean, is it a fair statement about all that?
Yeah, change is a big, big deal, and it's a cornerstone of what I do. I was very blessed during that CalPERS project to be gifted the opportunity to go through a change management certification program. At the time, there was only one formalized certification program, and it had been actually approved by the state of California. It's through a company called ProSci. And so they have a process, and it's called their ADCAR process. And I'm a certified ADCAR ProSci change management specialist. And the key is really very simple. Most people start with, here's the change, here's what you need to know, let's do it. That's the wrong way. The way you start is you say, here is the reality of the situation. I'm going to make you aware of something. The world is changing.
Mm.
We
Hmm.
don't have a choice. This
Yeah.
is not optional. This is not us trying to do something to you. This is something that we can't avoid. It's a train coming at us, and if we're going to survive, we have to change. You're going to lose some things you like. You're going to have to take some things on you don't like. The second part of that is D, desire. So this change is going to be frustrating because you're going to go through a learning process and you're going to lose some stuff that are comfortable and familiar, but you're going to get some stuff that you've wanted and you haven't had. And in the long run, you're going to say, holy moly, this is great. This is what we want. We've been wanting this forever. We haven't been able to do it. So along with the pain, the awareness of change that's not avoidable comes the desire of things you want that we're going to give to you. So you use that as the carrot and stick before you get into here's what you need to know to manage the change.
Mm. Hmm. Well, all right. I've got to ask you about the book. I see it up there. And you and I have talked about it. You sent it to me. Awesome. So, what's going on with the book? What's the focus of it? I see the title there. Interesting. But let's discover what's happening with the book.
So the title, I'm kind of an in-your-face kind of shock guy, which is where the title comes from. You can't really see the subtitle there, but what the subtitle says is How to Survive Success and Thrive in Good Times and Bad.
Okay.
Now think about what I talked about when I said I'm a change mentor. That's really what this book is about. How to
Mhm.
survive success and thrive in good times and bad.
Hmm.
So the first three chapters talk about my research, how I came up with the hypothesis, the eventual theory, and the way that it was validated, the proof of concept.
Yeah.
So it helps everybody understand that this is not my intellectual capital. This is just data that I found and reported on. About 70% of the book is data. About 20% of the book are real world examples of things that have happened that I've been a part of, mostly with my customers. Now, I have fictionalized them because when I go in to solve problems, people don't like the public to know that they're having trouble, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I fictionalize them. And then about 10% of it is my opinions and thoughts and perspectives. So those first three chapters are the setup. And then there are 8 components, the 8 of these indicators that I told you about. That's chapters 4 through 11. And then
Hmm.
chapter 12 puts it all together, gives you the assessment. And in each of those 8 chapters, I talk about the benefits of the particular indicator. I give an anecdote, a story. I talk about how to create it, how to implement, and how to maintain it. So it's very much what's called prescriptive nonfiction. It's like a how-to guide.
Yeah.
So you can
Yep.
actually buy the book and you don't ever need me unless you want me. And I like that. I like empowering people. I like
Yeah.
giving the leadership the skills to manage their staff so that as the staff grows, they have the skills they need. They don't need to call me back.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to ask you because it always amazes me, people who write books like that, uh, is how do you get that done? Is it everything else shuts off in your life and you do it? Do you go bury yourself in a room? Are you banging the keys out? I mean, what did that exercise look like?
Took me 10 years.
Oh,
I hired a
good one.
ghostwriter who failed, and then I had another ghostwriter who failed, and then I tried to do it myself and I failed. And then I joined a book club and a writers club, actually. And those people were so gracious and so giving and gave me clarity and taught me about editing and the different types of editing that are used and about voice. And I mean, they literally gave me everything I needed to know. And I've been writing my whole life, I should say. I've just never written a
Yep.
book. So I'm a
Yeah.
good writer. I've just never done a book, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got most of the book done and a lot of editors. Developmental editing was critical for me. It started as 26 chapters and ended up as 12. I left out 2 critical things, and the developmental editor found it. She says, "You're talking about this stuff, and I don't know what the hell you're talking about." And I said, "Well, it's the index." And she goes, "There's no index in the book." I said, "How can that be? I wrote the whole book and didn't put my assessment tool in there." And I'm referring to it throughout the whole book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then COVID hit and I finished it. I
Oh,
was
wow.
locked
Okay.
up in the room and finished it in that first year, 2020. And it was the most difficult thing I've ever done by
Well,
far.
sounds like it. Sounds like it's just a massive commitment. Who's the book for? I mean, who's the audience that will get the most from
Leadership,
that?
leadership teams of mid-sized organizations. If you have an organization that has multiple layers of management, that is autonomous, that can operate freely and make these kind of changes that I'm talking about without permission, right? Um, and if you have a desire to be sustainable, and this is important, my research did not include any retail companies. So if you have no primary sources of revenue from retail activities, those are the targets. Those are the people that the research came from. So that's who it's best for. Now, I will tell you that I've had a lot of people say things to me like, this works great for retail businesses, and this works great for home. I've had people tell me they apply some of the principles I put in here in how they manage their household. Um, it is not industry dependent. It is not legal structure dependent. It is not market dependent. It works for government. I've done this for congressmen. I've done this for schools. I've done this for profits and nonprofits. Um, I've done this for all kinds of organizations. It's really very universal because it's all about organizational sustainability, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every organization needs to be clear about their purpose. They need to be consistent in their delivery of services or products, and they need to have people that are engaged in the process. So it really works almost all platforms within that scope. Again, the research was no retail, autonomy. I can make changes. I don't have to ask permission,
Yep.
and multiple layers of management. It's really not designed for the solopreneur, although many solopreneurs do use most of the principles in the those first six indicators. Those last two are really for larger organizations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to tell people that wherever you're watching this, because we stream this everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, the links to get that book, to get connected with Larry are going to be around the video. And where is it? Where will they be going?
Well, most people just go to Amazon. They can
Yeah.
go to Amazon, they can go to Apple, they can go to the Play Store, they can go to my website. But the easiest thing to do is just go to Amazon. That's where you're going to get, and you're going to get the best price there. I have to sell it for full retail. Amazon discounts it all the time. And you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
buy Kindle versions on Amazon. So,
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, great. Well, I've got to ask this last question as we hit the wall here. Timing is um is where's your focus the next 1 to 3 to 4 years? I know you are a great speaker, that's it, but where are your efforts and what's changed in the next 3 4 years? Anything?
you mean for me or for the environment?
Yeah. You and the business, you and what's going on with your businesses.
Yeah. Uh, Interesting that you asked me that. My wife and I have been planning to relocate to Western Europe for 6 years. We've been going over there for a month at a pop and doing city dating tours. And
Whoa,
we're actually moving to France next June.
you're kidding me.
No, I'm not. We're leaving. And
Wow.
I've told all my clients, and my clients, I'm not actually looking for clients. I have all the clients I want. I haven't done any marketing for 25 years.
Yeah.
I take people on occasionally when it's the right thing.
Yep.
But my focus, so I'm going to continue doing my work overseas,
Yeah. Yeah.
not a problem. But my focus for the next 5 years is to promote the book because
Mm-hmm.
my vision is a world where there's no such thing as a help wanted ad. And the way you get there is that you have employees that are happy and love their job and are doing something they enjoy and are treated properly. And you have employers that are taking care of their staff and treat them with respect and make sure that they're doing that what they're doing is in the right area for the organization, that the organization is actually getting value from their staff. So you end up with an environment that's attractive to people who want to be there and they don't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So no help wanted. It's needed.
No help
I,
wanted.
I know how to find my job, but I'll never need to find another one. I know that seems weird in this age of gig economy, but I want to change the way business works in this country. And I believe that the information in this book will make every employer's life easier and every employee's job better.
Well, it's a profound statement, and I don't hesitate at all to believe that you're going to make an impact, are making an impact. It's great stuff. Wow. Well, I know
Thank
you and
you.
I are going to talk again because I want to. This whole France thing is amazing. All of us have just got a window into Paris with the Olympics and all that stuff. It's on everybody's mind right now. That's huge. That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Larry, thank you. Great discussion. We'll talk more. And when you're, for sure, when you're over there in France, let's get back on and have another chat and see what's going on there. But appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Paul. Had a ball.
Thanks.